Hi, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, for joining us today for Coloring the Conversation. I'm Andrea Clark. I am the Deputy CEO for PSI and also the Director for PSI's Alliance of People of Color. And we are excited to have, I'm excited to have these two wonderful guests with us today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves in just a second. We also want to send out all good thoughts and thoughts of healing and prayers for healing to our other panelists who Gladys, who was going to be there here with us today, but it's this time of year that blood bug is floating around and apparently and caught up with her. So we're sending you healing vibes, Gladys, and hope that you will be well soon, and we'll have you back on at another time. But we want to talk today about maternal rage, right? So I am going to let my wonderful panelists introduce themselves, and we're going to start with Lisette.
Hi, everyone, and to my fellow panelists. I'm honored and blessed to be here to talk about this really important topic that's near and dear to my heart. My name is Lisette Lopez Rose. I am Postpartum Support International's English online support group's program assistant manager. I also serve on the board of my local PSI California chapter as peer support chair, and I'm just so excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Lisette. Jocelyn.
Hi. Hello. It is morning where I am. So good morning, good afternoon. My name is Jocelyn Cunningham. I am a birth doula, an abortion doula, and a reproductive health educator based out of Indianapolis. I'm in Portland right now. I just presented at an anthropology conference, so good morning here. You'll see me drinking my coffee. Have been a doula for about 6-7 years, and also am a fellow in the Perinatal Mental Health Alliance of Color Fellowship, which is super, super exciting. Very excited to be here in this, anything maternal health, anything maternal, perinatal mental health really is near and dear to me. So just excited to be a part of the conversation. Thank you for having me.
Thank you both for being with us. Look, we have people who are connected to the Alliance and to PSI in all kinds of ways, like amazing ways. So blessed to have you both with us here today. So today we're talking about maternal rage or mom rage, right? Does one of you want to get us started with a definition? Like, what is maternal rage? Jocelyn, what is maternal rage and how's it different than just like frustration?
Yeah, so maternal rage, from my own experience and some experience from my own clients, is this almost overstimulation that then turns into rage, or some people call it mom anger. And it is different from just basic anger because there are so many things that come into it. It's a complex issue. It's a complex topic. So it goes past just, I'm just mad right now. Sometimes I'm mad for a few weeks. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to explain it. And then it turns into rage. So it can be from sadness to anger to then rage is when we get to almost our tipping point.
Yeah, thank you, Jocelyn. Lisette, you want to add anything? What's maternal rage and what's been your experience with it?
Yeah, so it's not a diagnosis. That's one thing that I like to kind of highlight. It could be a symptom of a perinatal mental health disorder, such as depression, which is how it showed up for me. So I wasn't like sad and crying with my perinatal depression. I was actually like super angry and like irritable and just agitated. And it's a mood disruption. That's what we know it is. And it's not a character flaw. That's one thing that I like to highlight too, is that it doesn't mean that you're a bad person or that you're terrible at managing anger. It just means like a check engine light's on, right? Something's going on and you got to check your check engine light and figure out what's going on. And that's really what I had to figure out, is like break it down and see what's going on internally with me, and then figure out how can I manage my anger a little bit better.
I like that. The check engine light is on. That's a good way to put it. Even like I had 2 pregnancies, and my first pregnancy, I realized I was mad. I was really mad. And I did a lot. I was young too. I was 19 and I did a lot by myself. And I didn't know what it was until my second pregnancy, where I was like, this feels very familiar. And then my OBGYN was like, okay, we need to start pinpointing some more things. And that's when that topic came up. But I like that engine light.
The check engine light comes on, right? So, um, when did you first notice, Lisette, because you said this showed up kind of as a symptom of postpartum depression for you. So when did you notice? Well, let me say this. I say a lot of times to the clients that I have who are experiencing depression, especially my patients of color, that depression does not always show up in people of color the same way that it shows up for our white counterparts, right? And so that doesn't mean that you won't experience those symptoms of sadness, of lethargy, of like lack of motivation, like lack of interest in doing things that you usually would do, right? You might still experience those things. But for me, culturally, a lot of times we don't have the permission to sit down and be quiet and allow for ourselves to be sad. And so depression shows up different ways for us a lot of the time. A lot of the time it can be somatic, right? We're having headaches or backaches or stomach aches that come out of nowhere and we don't understand why that's happening to us or why it's not resolving quickly. And it can come up in irritability and anger, right? And so, Lisette, when you were experiencing this kind of mom rage, how did you know that it just wasn't this symptom of like irritability, especially in the postpartum period, right? Because you're not sleeping, like your hormones are all over the place. And so I know when I don't get sleep, right, I can be irritable and cranky. But how did you know when you were more than just like angry?
Yeah, so I think for me personally, it just showed up as like the cartoon character or the comic character, the Incredible Hulk. That's like my perfect description of what it means to me and how it showed up as me. So it was like it was intense anger to the point where I couldn't control myself. And
Mm.
I was just so angry. I wanted to like break things or smash things, just like how the Incredible Hulk does, right? And so for me, like, it was not the crying and the sadness. Like, yes, I think I had some of that, but I wasn't, like, unmotivated to get up and take care of my baby. It was just, like, everything pissed me off, and everything made me so angry, and then I started to, like, be hard on myself because I was like, "Well, great, now I'm the stereotype of, this hot-headed Latina," because I identify as Mexican American, and so I was like, "Well, great, now I'm gonna see myself as, like, this hot-headed Latina, and that is the, stereotype that I'm gonna perpetuate now, great." And
Mm.
so then that's where it's like I held my anger internally, and then didn't express it outwardly, but, like, towards myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Oh, my goodness. Does any of that resonate with you, Jocelyn?
Oh, yes. In my experience, especially with my first daughter, I had been diagnosed with depression before, and there were a lot of conversations around what my mental health would be like because I had already had a diagnosis. And so I echo it was not intense sadness. There were times I could not hear her cry, and I would get so mad, and it would just frustrate me so bad. And at the time, I was living with my mom, and she worked during the day. And when she came home, I was like, I don't know what's wrong. I can't listen to it. I can't hear it. I don't know what to do. And she had a bassinet in her room for my daughter. So she would come and help with my daughter quite often. But it turned into I'm just mad and I'm angry and I didn't even have the language to explain what was going on. And it was a point where I didn't know if I wanted to be around my daughter. I didn't know if I could be around my daughter.
Mm.
And so it was very tough because back then, like I said, I didn't have the language for what it actually was, but it was definitely a process to get through it. Um, also, for me, one of the clear signs of my depression, even back then, was I couldn't sleep. So after having a baby, I already can't sleep. And then on top of that, I have all these emotions and I'm not resting. I don't know how to rest. I don't know how to be grounded. And it just turned into so many other things. So definitely is a lot in my experience.
Yeah. I wonder, how, so Lisette, you said that like it went from being angry about just everything. Did it feel like, were you constantly angry or would it come in like these waves and just stay and then you go into a different mood? Or how did it really affect you? You say you were mostly angry at yourself. So what were you doing with the anger as it was coming up?
Yeah, so for me, it was really tied to, like, challenge with breastfeeding. So like my daughter was losing weight, she wasn't able to latch. And so like I was having all these feeding issues. And so then I started turning it internally, like with just saying things and being hard on myself. Like, you're not doing what all mothers are supposed to be doing. This is what, your ancestors did with, breastfeeding and stuff. Like, why is it not coming naturally to you? And so I would first start out like that, where I was just being like hard on myself. And then it started getting more intense, where like I started to actually outwardly express the anger. So that was like snatching something off the counter, slamming a door, maybe like I think I ripped a cabinet off my like the hinge in my pantry because I was so angry. I think I like slammed it and I pulled the hinge off. And so it started to turn into like that scary, like destructive behavior that I was like, oh, okay, this is something I need to address. But then I got scared because I was like, if I tell people what I'm feeling and how I'm acting, like my biggest fear as a Latina was my baby's going to get taken away from me. Like that's all I see in media portrayed as people, like taking babies away from people of color because they're deemed an unfit parent because of whatever feelings they're having. And so I was just like telling myself, like, I can't tell people like what I'm going through. I can't trust the providers. I already don't trust them because they were already dismissing my symptoms of depression and anxiety that I was having and OCD. And so I was like, I just don't trust them. So I just kept going on and on and on. And it just came to a full steam, like when I was 6 months postpartum. And I was like, I really can't keep struggling. Like, I got to do something. I got to reach out for help because I can't keep destroying things in my house. I need to do something about it. And that's when I wonderfully found, Postpartum Support International, first support group. And I just felt like, oh my gosh, like I'm not the only one. I'm not this evil, mean mom. I'm not the only one struggling with that intense anger that's turning into destruction.
Yeah. Yeah. That having that connection and that resonance and not feeling like you're alone really is so important. Jocelyn, how was the anger coming up for you? I know you said sometimes it would be the baby crying that would trigger it for you, but then where would the anger go? What would you do with it?
Oh, I was big on, it was a lot of isolation for me. Especially being young with my first daughter, I was still a teenager. So I kind of hid a lot of those emotions. And when I went back to work, I think it showed up a lot more when I went back to work and being around people. And I was not like that before I went on maternity leave. So a lot of it showed up in some of my interactions with my peers and my colleagues. And then somebody kind of pulled me to the side and was like, "Are you okay?" And that's when I was like, "Am I okay?" Like really being able to ask and answer that question, and I was not. However, at that time, I didn't have resources outside of my OBGYN. A lot of the mental health resources I came about was when I became a doula, and then I started realizing all of these things actually existed. And so for me, it was after the fact. I ended up getting back on an antidepressant, which did help some of the like depressive symptoms, but the rage I still kind of kept with me over the few years after that until I was able to see a therapist, which was still not until after my twins were born. And so my daughter at the time was like 6 or 7 when I even started therapy. So it took some time and it took some process. And part of it was we didn't talk about that in my family. Like my mom was very open and transparent about her postpartum depression after she had me, but like that was the extent of our conversation. We didn't talk about it in our family. We don't talk about mental health in our family. And it was not very supportive of what could be done. And I echo what you're saying, Lizette, because I didn't want to tell anybody. I did not want anybody to come take my baby. I didn't want to be judged. I didn't want anybody to tell me I was unfit. You shouldn't feel like this. And so a lot of that was bottled up and it just turned into isolation and it turned into hiding my feelings. I hid my feelings for years until I was able to find a space that was safe and sacred for me. So.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So 6 or 7, but your daughter was 6 or 7 before you started therapy, right? But this whole time, like you were living knowing something wasn't feeling quite right. You were not, you were kind of off kilter.
Yep.
And that thing about, Lisette talked about the stereotype of the fiery Latina,
Mm-hmm.
the stereotype of the angry Black woman,
Yep.
right? And so, like, feeling this kind of societal pressure,
Mm-hmm.
not to feed into those stereotypes, I can imagine is something that would, in addition to the fear of, it's so weird though. Lisette, when you were talking, I'm like, there is this fear of being stereotyped as this angry Black woman, right? Because that's what there's fiery Latina, because that's what people assume that you are. Already that's what they assume you are. And so then there's the fear of my baby being taken away because I'm unfit for being exactly who you think I am. Right? You already think I'm a fiery Latina. And so if I tell you that I'm having these feelings of anger, or you see any of that come out, like as I'm expressing what's going on with me, then you're going to take my baby because I'm unfit. But this is exactly who you thought that I was. And so I wonder if either of you struggle with this sense of your fitness to be a parent when you were feeling these feelings of like rage and sudden bursts of like anger that just wouldn't come out of nowhere and just wouldn't go away. Like, did you struggle with feeling like maybe I wasn't meant to be a mom?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. In
Yeah.
both of my pregnancies, I couldn't even pinpoint even today where or how or what that actually meant, but it almost echoed to the point that you made what society was saying about me, what the people around me thought about me. And it was very hard to feel like I lived in that place of not, am I a good mom? What is a good mom? I think that it it was very hard to even answer that question in a lot of those spaces, especially when, to me, these emotions are normal. Like I'm going through them so regularly that they are normalized for me. Um, and how do I get around being the unfit mom, or how do I answer that question? And a lot of that came to finally talking to other people, even outside of my therapist. When other people, I was one of the first people, like within our group of our community, to have twins. And so after that, it seemed like everybody was pregnant with twins. And so then people started coming to me and asking me for advice about what I went through and how I felt. And that's when I started realizing, oh, it's not just me. And they are good moms, so I'm a good mom. So it was really a lot of that lied in the community that I built after having my twins, which, like I said, was 6, 7 years after my first 6 years. They were born. My daughter was 5. My oldest daughter was 5 when they were born. So 5.5, 6 years after my oldest daughter was when people started coming to me and started creating space within me to then ask that question again. And it was like, okay, but I like the way they parent. We parent very similar. So maybe I'm not unfit. And that's when that question came back up and we could find other ways to answer it.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's say you said that finding PSI and finding a community of people who could kind of relate made you feel that same sense of like, okay, it's not just me. But were you questioning like your fitness as a mom as when you were going through this?
Yes. Yes, with an exclamation point, 3 exclamation points. Because I was with my husband we were married, I think, for 2 years before we decided, let's start planning for a family and doing that. And so we were very meticulous, like we planned, which obviously everyone says you can't plan for children, right? They come, you get blessed when you're blessed, right? But we really were trying to think in terms of like family planning. And so this child was very much planned, very much wanted. And when it happened, I was like, do I even want to be a mom? Like, is this really what motherhood is going to feel like? Because I don't think I like it. And now I'm asking myself, what did I get myself into? Like, this is not what I expected. And now I'm questioning, like, do I even want to be a mom? Am I even fit to be a mom? Do I have the personality? Because I was thinking to myself that in, the depictions of motherhood is just kind of like this, like la la land where everybody's so happy. Mom does everything, is self-sacrificing. But we don't see the other side of what happens when mom gets depleted and does all those things, right? And so that's what I was feeling, was that like I do enjoy motherhood, but at the same time, like I am so drained, I am so depleted, I can't take care of myself, and everybody's focused on this little baby, and now I'm just kind of like left, on the side, having to take care of myself as well. And so that's where, like, in the support groups, someone had mentioned, like, I don't know if I want to be a mom anymore, right? And obviously their baby's there and they're just expressing their feelings. And I was like, whoa, we can be that vulnerable in this space. I was like, oh yeah. So I immediately attached onto that, and we had a good old conversation. And I learned in that moment, like, it wasn't me, it wasn't my character. I'm not a flawed person to have anger. Anger is just part of the normal human experience, and it's a feeling that we're going to have no matter what. And so I really started to detach it from motherhood. Like, the anger that I have doesn't mean that I'm a bad mom, or doesn't mean that I'm not fit to be a mom. It just means that something else is going on. And that's where I like bring up that little check engine light. I forget what it's called, but you know what I'm saying? Like, bringing up that as like how it looks.
I love that. You know what? That check engine light. I'm with Jocelyn. I'm about to. I might
Hold it down.
I might quote you the first time I use it, but I say this to my to clients, and when I was a chaplain to patients all the time, right? That there are no bad or negative emotions, right? That we're made this way as human beings to experience these various feelings and emotions, and really the feelings are coming to tell you something. Right. And so that's that check engine light. I'm going to use that. The feelings are like a check engine light. You're like, you need to look, there's something going on, right? And so I love that. And so what was it? Well, how did these moments of like rage when you're experiencing this, Lizette, how did that affect your relationship with your husband? Jocelyn, how did that affect your relationship with your mom or your family?
Yeah, for me, it was hard because, I think my husband, he is very, very much supportive. He's an amazing husband. We've done a coloring in the conversation with you before, so you've met him. But he is very supportive, and he's there willing to do whatever and anything, right? But when I started showing that anger, it was starting to get directed at him. And so, like, I would take things out on him or be upset of the littlest things that he did, like leaving a cup out. Like, it would just send me into this huge anger spiraling out of control. And he's like, all I did was leave a cup like on the counter. Like, it's not that big of a deal. And in his mind, it's not a big of a deal. But to me, I'm like, oh, now I have to take care of you too, right? And so, like, that kind of not fractured our relationship, but there was definitely some like dents, I like to say. So I'm gonna go back to my car analogy. But there's definitely some like in our relationship, but then we were able to work through it, because when he started seeing like how angry I was getting, he was like, that is not like you. Like, and I don't care what anybody says, you're not, the feisty Latina. Like, you're a very loving, caring, warm person. That's who you are, and that's not how you're acting right now. And so even he knew, like, okay, something's going on because you're not acting like yourself. And so then that was his kind of call for me to like, okay, I'm glad that you're reaching out now to get help, because by then he was like, I'm starting to get worried about you. And then I PSI. And so luckily he knew that like I had those support systems in place.
You had the support systems. That's great. So he was like one of your support systems to encourage you to like seek further help, because he recognized that this is like, you are not yourself right now. Yeah, that's great. Jocelyn, what about you? How did this affect your relationships?
Yeah, so me and my mom are pretty close, and so a lot of what feel like I was experiencing, she could pinpoint. She'd be like, "Okay, what's going on?" To the same, like, "Oh, this is not you. What's going on?" And so I'm very comfortable expressing myself to her. And so when I decided I was going to go to therapy, it really taught me to use my voice. So in those moments, like, I'm an isolator. Even now, I'm an isolator, but like, I have really been coached, taught, and educated on how I can use my voice to make it work for me. And so a lot of that was when she wanted to talk, I was just more apt to talk to her versus isolating. And a lot of that was just like, I know I need help. I just don't know what type of help I need, but I know I can't get help unless I say something. So that for me and my mom, I think in both of my pregnancies, we got closer because she really created a space for me to talk. And even with after I had the twins, their dad, because we dated. I mean, we dated. We've known each other. We went to middle school together, so we've known each other for decades. He was like, there's times where he would call and I would be on the phone. And he'd be like, okay, I think I'm gonna just come pick the twins up for a few hours. Like he could just sense something in my voice that was different. And so it took a few years even for me to open up and finally tell him how I was feeling. Because back to the fear of I don't want too many people involved. I don't want him to now question, are his kids safe? Like, a lot of things, because we lived in separate homes after the twins were born. I was scared. I was like, I don't want him to come over here and think I can't take care of my kids and I can't do this. But I couldn't take care of my kids. I had so many emotions going on that I needed help. And that was when we were able to finally have conversation where I felt comfortable enough to be vulnerable and say, hey, I'm struggling. And he knew I had my bouts with depression, and this was different than depression though. And he was like, okay, call me when you need help. And he's like that now. Like there are times where he'll just be like, I'm just going to come pick the twins. Just 2 weeks ago, he had them for a week. It's like, you just need a break. And so really a lot of that helped strengthen our relationships once I was able to navigate what I was feeling. And part of the times I couldn't name the emotion. I couldn't say I'm mad. I couldn't say I'm sad. I just knew I didn't feel right. I
Yeah.
wasn't sleeping. I couldn't eat. And I just don't feel good. And so it really created the space for us to have more conversations, even if it was just 2 or 3 people. And then I started getting more comfortable with setting boundaries. Like it then created a whole like plethora of things that I could do because I was able to really utilize my voice. But that started with my mom creating that safe space and then him being like, okay, something is off. Luckily, I had people around me who knew me enough to know that this is not typical and I know something is not right.
Yeah, I love that. We know that like positive social relationships, right, are protective factors in terms of like mental health and treatment for mental health, right, and for the likelihood of people to get and start to feel better. So I wonder for you as a doula, Jocelyn, like how do you incorporate this in how you care for the clients that you see? What do you tell them about? I don't know if you share your experience or how you normalize like what they might be feeling or going through and how to help them cope with it.
Oh yeah, I very much am. Um, I find the power in the story. So I try to be as relatable as possible to all of my clients. And a lot of those conversations start in our consultations. It starts the first time we meet. And we go through what they're wanting to experience, birth plans, how we're thinking about it. But then I want to ask personal questions to see
Mhm.
how do you navigate this with your partner? How do you navigate this within yourself? What do you do to ground yourself? Even as we start preparing to be in a birthing room, what does grounding mean to you? How do you feel? Do you know how to name your emotions? And really explaining to them that it is normal for your hormones are all over the place for one. It is normal to have feelings you've never felt before. My key thing is tell somebody that you're feeling those things. And if you don't feel like you can tell your partner, you got my cell phone number, call me. And so a
Mhm.
lot of it is education from the beginning. We do a lot of, and part of that is my own experience, but part of that has been experiences I've seen with other people,
Yeah.
especially other people of color who you may live in a multi-generational home and your auntie and uncle is in the living room, but you upstairs in the bedroom and your partner coming. So like, how do we navigate everyone in the room? How do we navigate the space that you do have in a way that is healthy for your own mental health? And how do we pinpoint when we're feeling different? Because like I mentioned earlier, I didn't have the words, but like I knew in my body that something didn't feel right. So we then do a lot of education on when my body feels different, what does this mean? Or I'm feeling this in my stomach or my back, what does this mean? And so a lot of it is teaching people how to feel their bodies, and they don't
Yeah.
know, a lot of people don't know how to do that. And I think that people would be surprised to hear that, but as someone who didn't know how to feel their own body, I couldn't do that. I couldn't name it.
Yeah.
Uh, but a lot of it is education really from the beginning. And when we get through, especially I always do postpartum planning sessions with all of my clients. We come in between like 30 and 37 weeks and we do postpartum planning. I come into the home and we talk very in depth about feelings that may come up, feelings that may come up when family is around, feeling that comes up that I don't want anybody to touch my baby. And that's normal too. Like, we talk through a range of things, and then we talk through resources. PSI has been a great resource for all of my clients. There's a chapter in Indiana. I know someone who sits on that chapter, and I know who our perinatal therapists are, and I have resources, and I send out emails and I give out books to really be able to let them do that on their own, but just navigate it with them. And just make sure that they know I'm a resource. You know, call me if you need something, shoot me a text, send me an email. If we need to get together and I need to come see you, because if I go so long without seeing you, I'm gonna come to your house. I want to see you. I want to make sure you're okay. But that education literally starts from the point of consultation.
I love that. Lisette, what do we do as PSI in our support groups? Like, we have a support group from Maternal Rage, from Mom Rage. Is that right?
Yeah, we just launched it. I call it my second baby now. So we had one meeting in March, and then it's going to be twice a month starting in April. But it's the postpartum rage group for anyone that is 2 weeks to 2 years postpartum. So we have that group in place. And then going just to the regular perinatal mood support groups, we can always talk about anger in those groups. For sure, especially if it's showing up as one of the symptoms of like one of the other disorders that I talked about, like perinatal depression, anxiety. It could show up like that, the anger. And so it's definitely a safe space to talk about it. And then I also like giving out like different podcasts that there's a few podcasts out there where you can hear like basically someone's story of how the anger showed up, kind of like what we did today as well. And then there's books. I know there's a really great book by Mina Dubin that we also recommend in our support group now. So Mom Rage, that is such a wonderful book. If you've never read it, it's so good. And it just kind of normalizes the experience and talks about like societal pressures and all that. But yeah, that's what we have for PSI support groups.
That's great. I love that. I'm loving that we have this new support group for postpartum rage. And because you both named how finding other folks who may have experienced something similar made you feel so not like you're not alone, and helped pull you out of that isolation, Jocelyn, and to be able to find connection with other people, right? Because a lot of times what happens when we feel like, it diminishes the shame. And I appreciate what you both are doing, both by sharing your stories here. Lisette, you with the support group work that you're doing, Jocelyn, with you and your clients, is also you are giving people that look like us, like, this permission to not be ashamed of naming how they're feeling, right? Not be ashamed of being stereotyped as this angry or fiery, woman of color. And you're giving us permission to be able to say, like, no, this is something that other people go through. Right. And there's no shame in talking about it. Right. But Lisette, how do you help? What would you say to the loved one or partner or support person of someone who's experiencing maternal rage? Like, how do you explain what it is, and how do you explain to them, like, how to support your partner through this?
Yeah, I again will have to kind of repeat myself again, where it's not a flaw. It's not a character flaw or mean that they're a terrible person. It just means that they're an unsupported person and they really are in need of some kind of family or community support. And it could be specifics, like instead of asking, oh, is there anything I can do for you? Like, no, let's throw that out. It's not the person's responsibility who just gave birth to come up with a to-do list for you. And let's do some actual tangible tasks that you can just automatically do. And that could be, if you have pets, like walking the dogs or feeding the cat, or, whatever it is, whatever pets, you have, doing laundry, going grocery shopping, getting meals prepped or even delivered to the house. I think that's one of the beautiful things of the pandemic is now we can get groceries delivered to our house. We can get food delivered, quite easily to our home. And so those are kind of like those tangible things that you can do to help support a person. That's what their anger is saying. That's what their check engine light is saying is, I'm unsupported. I need help. There's something going on. And half the time it's just they need to not have a to-do list constantly on their head, and they need to have support for themselves as well, to where they get to take care of themselves and take like a shower, for example, something so basic as a human need of taking a shower.
I know. I remember my son being a newborn, and it's like, if I got a shower today, ooh, I'm winning. Right? If I got a shower and he was taking a nap, ooh, I'm winning for real.
Yeah.
Right? Jocelyn, one of the things you mentioned is that your twin's father kind of recognized and said, did one of those supportive things like, okay, let me come get the twins.
Yep.
You need a break,
Yep.
right? What are some other ways that were you able to explain to him what was going on with you? I know you said you didn't really have words. Did you tell him, like, I'm just angry for no reason? And how did you even explain this to your older daughter, or did you?
Oh man. So with him, with Dad, we had a conversation, I think, after the fact, once I started getting into therapy and could actually verbalize what I was feeling. A lot of it was I was lashing out at him, and he was like, okay, hold on. Like, I was just being real smart. I was being real short. I was just, I wasn't feeling it. And he could feel it. And he was like, okay, I'm gonna come get the twins. Like, something, I know maybe you need some sleep. Did you sleep last night? Like, so a lot of that was conversation. So we had small conversations like that. And then when I feel like I had the language to have a conversation, we had a way more in-depth conversation, where we were actually able to sit down and talk, and I was able to feel comfortable enough to express to him what I was feeling. I'm like, look, I'm just upset. I need some support. To the point you just mainly said, I thought that was so good. Like, the check engine light is, I need support. And it was like, I need you to do this. I need some help with this. And he was like, okay, perfect. I'll just do that. So a lot of that came after I had the language. And to your second question, which I think is a great question, yes, I did end up having a conversation with my oldest daughter. And she was in elementary school, and a lot of it came in a form of an apology. Was, I am now recognizing what happened. I can see it differently. And I'm really, I'm very transparent with my kids. We talk a lot about our emotions and feelings, because I always want them to have space to come to me when they feel those emotions. And me and my oldest daughter, we've gotten very, very close. She's about to be a teenager, and all of my feelings about it. But we had a conversation where I was like, I'm sorry, because the mom, she got a completely different mom than the twins got, for one. So I'm grown, I've learned a lot, I've lived a little bit more life. I'm a completely different person. And so a lot of it was like, I'm sorry, I didn't see you when I was going through what I was going through. And I was not there in times where I feel like you needed me to be there. And so we really opened up, and she was young, but she understood, she knew what it was. And I was nervous that she was creating resentment to the twins. So, like, we went through their relationship, and I recognized how much of that was on me, and how I navigated being a parent to all three of them in a different way. And so it was very open conversation. We still have very open conversations. But it came as an apology, and I was able to then feel comfortable enough to tell her, like, I have depression. I get upset sometimes. I don't know what to do with it sometimes. And it may come off like this. And I'm working on that. And a lot of it is very transparent. And I do that intentionally now, because I want them to have the language to now say, okay, I'm mad, or I'm angry, or I'm frustrated. And really because for them, what I learned is, when I can vocalize it, then I can get help. I tell them all the time, I can't help you if I don't know what's going on. And really creating that space for them to use those words to then come and tell me, you know what, I'm upset today because of this. They can pinpoint the emotion, they can pinpoint where it started, and they know how they're feeling. And my stomach is hurting, and I don't know, I'm just feeling really nervous. Like, it was very much then me being able to pass that on to them, and them being Black girls. I mean, it's very crucial for me to teach them a lot of those things, because when you get in school and you out in the world, I'm not there, and I need you to be able to vocalize and know who your people are, know where you need to go when you need those things, if I'm not there, if Dad is not there. And I have been lucky and blessed with both my kids' dads are very involved and can be helpful in things and be those supports too. And so a lot of that was me navigating that language with them. Even Cassidy's dad, when we got older, was like, we were both young when we had her. And it was like, okay, this is how I feel. This is where I feel like we could do better. This is how our communication is, and really being able to do that. But a lot of that came in my experience of having our kids. So yeah.
Love that. I think about you're talking, and I think about sometimes um, my my child when I'm stressed out. Like kids can pick up and
Oh yeah.
sense things; they see things, and so now he's a little bit older. He's 11. He can tell when I'm having a bad day, right? He'll be like, "Mommy, you seem pretty stressed out." Um, I don't know, one day we came home from church and I was just overwhelmed. And um, I don't know, I felt like I had a list of stuff to do and he wanted to play. And I said, I just can't right now. Mommy, you seem pretty stressed out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go in my room and play my video game. And you should just lay on the couch and watch 2 of your shows. And I'm going to bring you a blanket.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll come back and check on you in a little bit. But now what, like, just this comes out of like that work that you do, like to kind of explain to them about recognizing what your feelings are and being able to know how to tend to and care for yourself when you have these feelings, right? And so he was doing that for me when in the moment, like I couldn't do it for myself, right? And not that you ever want your kids to feel like they have to take care of you, right? But it is such a beautiful thing to be able to build up that awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And you receive the help in the form that it comes. I don't expect that from him,
Oh, yeah.
but you receive the help in the form that it comes, and know that it's okay for you to receive help from people, right? And for you to be able to name. And sometimes when you're in the middle of it, you don't always know exactly what you need, right? So Lisette, I love that that you said, you asking people, tell me what you need, right? Can sometimes be helpful, but for sometimes when I'm trying to figure out even like my right foot from my left foot right now, like I don't know, that I need to eat. That the baby needs to eat. That clothes need to be washed. Dishes need to be washed. Like those basic life things of being able to take things off people's plate. And so even if I can't name that it's the sink full of dishes that's really setting off this anger for me right now, right? Like for the people who care about you to be able to just pay attention to what's being done and what's not being done. And even if they think you have a fridge full of groceries, you don't feel like cooking, send me some Grubhub. Like Grubhub me something tonight, right? And let that be it.
Mm-hmm.
Let that be it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I want to give you all an opportunity to just say anything that you want to say. If you have a doctor, pediatrician, another doula, midwife, a spouse, a therapist, anybody watching right now that works with caretaker, that works with people who might be experiencing postpartum rage. What would you say to them about what it means? How do they create space to be able to care for somebody who's going through this?
I think for me, I want to reach out to the doctors, pediatricians, whether they're the ones seeing the patient or not, but just really understanding that like anger doesn't mean baby won't be taken care of, right? It means we need to make sure that mom's okay so that baby can continue to be taken care of, okay? And so I think when you encounter someone who's angry, they're unsupported. They need help. They need some sort of resources. And if you're not sure what resources to point them to, Postpartum Support International is a great resource. I can't, suggest PSI more than I already do. I work for them, obviously, but it was so vital to my recovery, to feeling better, is just that connection, that human connection with someone else who gets it, who understood me, and who wasn't judging me for the angry feelings I was having. And so for me, I'm just like, if you don't know where to point them, just point them to PSI, because that's the first and foremost place that they're going to get support, and they're going to start to feel better by just having some sort of resources somewhere to look, and then finding a therapist. They can find a therapist that way too. So that's what I would say to doctors that are listening in.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jocelyn.
Yeah, I think a lot of what I would like to say is for all, but for our partners and our community members, knowing who your postpartum doulas are in your area is very helpful. Postpartum doulas, a lot of them, especially the ones we have in like Indianapolis, especially the ones of color, do a lot more training and know a lot more of the signs, and can come in and be a help to do some of those things within the home, but also to work with partner and work with family to really create the wraparound support. So I also always want to uplift our postpartum doulas and the work that they do, and our therapists. So many great perinatal therapists and therapists who are very, very driven by these types of topics to really help people understand that this is normal and this is okay. And you, to the point that has been made the whole time, you are not a bad parent because you are upset. You are okay. You just need a little bit more support, and that's okay. Having support is always okay. There is no such thing as too much support. You are never at risk. I went to a session yesterday, and actually, I wish it was in this notebook, because someone was like, you are never at risk for too much love. And so please don't, even if you got 3, 4, 5 people around, you could have 10, 11, 12, 13 people around you. Please do not diminish the idea of your community and the people who can help you. And that doesn't have to be local. It can come from Postpartum Support International. You could talk to someone in California and you in New York, and y'all have the same thing. And now we understand each other because there is somebody else who sees me. All we want to do is be seen, and we want to be supported. And so I think just there are so many layers to it. You don't have to have just one person. Don't ever think my partner is enough, because sometimes your partner, it's a lot for them too. We talk about paternal perinatal mental health seriously because they need help too. So never feel like there's no such thing as too much help. Never.
I love that. I love that. Lisette, anything else you would add for people who might be experiencing this themselves, like who would be a help seeker?
Yeah, just know that you're not alone, and that, anger, again, it's part of the human experience. We all feel anger, and there's help. There's definitely help out there, and you're not alone.
I love it. I love this. You're not alone. The check engine light. You're not at risk of having too much love and support. All of those things. Okay, I'm taking pieces of this away. I'll quote you like somebody told me, I'll quote you the first time, but after that, I'm gonna quote you the first time. I'll cite you the first time, but I definitely will be using some of these phrases because I think it really crystallizes and it helps people to get it right.
Yep.
That check engine light lets you know that something is going on inside the car that you can't see, but there might be symptoms happening, right? That you don't understand. The check engine light is just like, get this taken in to get taken care of. We would do that for our car before we would do that for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so you got to take better care of yourself than you do of a vehicle.
Yeah.
Right. And just like somebody told me about my baby, when he cried, there's a whole, I'm not going to get into debate about let him cry it out, pick him up, let him cry it out, pick it up. But what somebody told me is that you can never love a baby too much, right? You can never love a baby too much. There's no risk. So that same thing, like you can't be loved on and supported too much. All right. And so remember that for yourselves. Thank you so much, Lisette. Thank you so much, Jocelyn. Thank you for your vulnerability and for your wisdom and for sharing and for your beautiful smiles this afternoon, morning, still where you are listening. And thank you for your time and for sharing. I want to let you guys know that if you don't know how to get in contact with us at PSI, there's going to be a a scroll coming up really soon that has where you can find the Alliance on our social media channels. There we are. And then where you can find the PSI webpage at postpartum.net, all of our resources, including all of the support groups that Lizette talked about, the provider directory you can find there. You can search by like ethnic background, specialty, all of those things. Like you can narrow your search for that. And even doulas and our other postpartum professionals who have gone through our training and understand postpartum mental health. You can find those folks there as well. You can, if you need to find resources in your area, you can contact our PSI helpline. We have a helpline in both English and Spanish. You call and someone will get back with you in 24 to 48 hours that is familiar with resources in your area that can connect you with resources in your area. If you are having some of these symptoms, maybe you're feeling rage that you never felt before, anger, and you don't know where it's coming from, or depression, or you just don't feel like yourself, and you're pregnant or you're postpartum, or you're the loved one of someone who is pregnant and postpartum and you're concerned about them, please call the National Maternal Mental Health Hotline. It's staffed by clinical counselors, folks that have also been trained in maternal mental health, and that's 833 TLC Mama. You'll see the number scrolling by on the bottom. But if you're in crisis and you feel like you don't know if you want to live or not, or there's some other thing that's making you feel so weighed down that you don't know if you can make it through another day, we make it even simpler. The National Crisis Hotline is 988, just 3 numbers. Please call. You are not alone. There is help. Their healing is possible, and there is a light at the end of every tunnel. This is not the end for you. Okay, so please avail yourself of all those resources and join me in thanking our wonderful guests, Ms. Lisette Lopez Rose and Jocelyn Cunningham, for joining us today and sharing their wisdom and their stories. All right, we will see you guys next month. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.